MCQs on Constitution of India. Topics cover state government, governor, legislature and chief minister. The governor of a state is appointed by the president of India. The minimum age become a governor is 35 years. A person is eligible for appointment as governor if they are citizens of India and at least 35 years old. The governor is the executive head of the state. The term of office of a governor is 5 years. The governor holds office at the pleasure of the president. Which article deal with the powers of the governor? Article 154. Which of the following is not a legislative power of the governor? That is granting pardons. The governor can nominate how many Anglo-Indians to the legislative assembly? 1. Discretionary powers of the governor are limited but significant. The governor acts on the advice of the State Council of Ministers headed by the CM. The governor's ordinance making power is given under Article 213. The governor is part of the state legislature as a power Article 160. The governor can reserve a bill for the consideration of the President of India. The governor submits the annual report to the President of India. Each state in India has a unicameral or bicameral legislature. A bicameral legislature includes legislative assembly and legislative council. The maximum strength of a state legislative assembly is 500. The minimum age for a person to be a member of legislative assembly is 25. The tenure of state legislative assembly is 5 years. The maximum strength of legislative council cannot exceed one third of the legislative assembly. Members of legislative assembly are elected by people through direct election. Legislative council is a permanent body. Which state has a bicameral legislature? Uttar Pradesh. Who, who presides over the meetings of the legislative assembly? Speaker. Who elect the speaker of the legislative assembly? Members of the assembly. The speaker's tenure is until the assembly is dissolved. Money bills can be introduced only in legislative assembly. The penal authority to decide a bill as a money bill is speaker of the legislative assembly. Which article deal with the composition of state? Article 168. When the governor addresses the state legislature, it is done at the first session each year and after general election. The quorum for state legislative assembly is one-tenth of total membership. Which of the following is true about legislative council? It is a permanent house. The legislative process at the state level is similar to union parliament. The upper house in a bicameral state is Vidhan Parishad. The real executive authority in a state lies with the chief minister. The chief minister is appointed by governor. The chief minister must be a member of state legislature. The CM is the head of council of ministers. Tenure of chief minister is depend on the competence of legislative assembly. The council of ministers is collectively responsible to legislative assembly. The CM is the link between the governor and council of ministers. Which article provides for a council of ministers in states? Article 163. The salaries and allowances of ministers are determined by the state legislature. The chief minister advises the governor on appointment of the other ministers. Who administrates the oath of office to the chief minister? Governor. Which article deal with the appointment of chief minister and other ministers? Article 164. A person can remain ministers for 6 months without being a member of the legislature under Article 164. Disqualification of member is dealt with under Article 191. Registration letter of the chief minister, resignation letter of the chief minister is resignation letter of the chief minister is addressed to the governor. Which state has a unique provision for 6 schedule in its state legislature? Assam. The size of the council of ministers shall not exceed 15% of total strength of the legislative assembly. Who gives assent to bills passed by the state legislature. Governor. Governor can withhold assent, return the bill or reserve it for the president. Which house in the state legislature can be dissolved? Vidhan Sabha. India has adopted which form of government in state? Parliamentary form. The Speaker of the Assembly can be removed by resolution passed by a majority of the Assembly. A money bill originates in the state legislative assembly. If the governor returns a bill to the assembly and it is passed again, he must give assent. State budgets are presented by finance minister of the state. If the CM lost majority, he must resign immediately. The governor can dissolve the assembly on the advice of the chief minister. The speaker of the assembly presides over the joint sitting of no provision for joint sitting in state. This schedule contains the list of states and union territories. First schedule. If a money bill is not written by the council within 14 days deemed to be passed, which body decides on dispute the related to disqualification under 10th schedule? Speaker. What is the minimum age for legislative council member? 30. Governor appoints the Advocate General under Article 165. Advocate General of State holds office during the pleasure of Governor. Which article deal with the state government's executive power? Article 162. The Governor can nominate one member from Anglo-Indian community to assembly if community is underrepresented. A bill becomes an act after governor's assent under Article 201. Resignation of minister is submitted to governor. Who allocates portfolio among ministers in the state? Chief minister. Which house is also known as the lower house of the state? That is Vidhan Sabha. The highest law-making body in a state is state legislature. State legislative council members are elected for a term of the 6 years. The position of chief minister is similar to that of the prime minister. The governor can recommend president's rule under Article 356. The State Public Service Commission chairman is appointed by the governor. State laws are subject to judicial review under Article 13. Money bills in the state must receive governor's assent under Article 200. The power of judicial review in state is exercised by the High Courts and Supreme Court. Which schedule of the Constitution deal with allocation of powers between state and union? 7 schedule. The oath of secretary for minister is administered by the governor. The state legislative assembly can be suspended during president's rule. Which of the following state does not have legislative council? Gujarat. To become a governor, a person should not be a member of the parliament. The governor sends annual reports on state administration to president. A motion of no confidence against a state minister can be moved in legislative assembly. Which article gives the governor power to grant pardons, reprieves, et cetera? Article 161. A governor can act in his discretion in case of appointing CM when no party has the majority. Which one of the following is discretionary power of the governor? Sending a report to the president about the failure of the constitutional machinery. The executive power of a state is vested in the governor. The chief minister acts as the real executive authority. Which house of the state legislature has more authority on the financial matters? Vidhan Sabha. In case of dissolution of state assembly, who remains in charge? Governor. Which article empowers the governor to promulgate ordinance? Article 213. The state legislature makes laws on subjects in the state list. Which of the following is true? That is, CM is appointed by the governor, usually the leader of the majority. Thank you.